Hello, graduate students. This instructor video is designed to help you with your research article evaluations, the first one of which is due this Friday at 1 p.m. So what is this assignment all about? Well, what it's all about is to get you to, first of all, be exposed to other people's research in the area of comparative media, and then secondly, to critique that research as you start to elevate your own skills as a scholar and ultimately a master of communication. You are looking at other people's research and not just accepting it, you're understanding it, synthesizing it, analyzing it, and critiquing it. That's what this evaluation assignment is all about. So your task is to first of all find a research article in a research journal, and that article has to be comparing the media between two countries. Ideally, one of those countries is going to be the country that you've selected to study this semester, but it doesn't have to be. It's just that if you can do that, you can help your research paper when you get towards the end because you've already done some study in your country. So what is a research article? An article that is a research article is published in an academic journal. An academic journal has a review process whereby the researcher or researchers submits their article for blind review or peer review. They are both referring to the same process. And that means that your names are taken off of the article, and the article is submitted to usually 3 experts in the field who evaluate the article and then render an opinion. And if you have all 3 people saying that it should be published, then it ends up in the journal. And most articles do not get published. The acceptance rate for journal articles can vary between 1%, 5%, and 10%, and the lower the number, the more prestigious the journal is. So you can find this research article on your own. As an ESU student, you have access to Kemp Library and all of its search methods to look for articles in databases around the world. Or if you need assistance, you can contact Michelle Donlin. Michelle Donlin is a librarian at East Stroudsburg University's Kemp Library. She's given guest lectures in my class, and she will be able to help you identify an article in an academic journal. I'll provide her email address in the email that I send out to you about this assignment. Okay, so once you've chosen your research article, now comes the real work. In 400 words, or 390 to 410 words, counting them exactly, that's your window, you're going to evaluate this article according to 3 dimensions. The first dimension that you're going to take on is the article's literature review. Not a literary review. A lot of people confuse those terms. A literary review is looking at some of the great epic poems and other great short stories and other great creations of artistic content that are considered to be literary. That's not what we're doing here. A research article conducts a literature review. A literature review looks at what other people have studied in the same area as what your particular study has been in. So if you're looking at the comparison between 2 websites, one in another country and one in your country, comparing the portrayal of women and men in those websites in relation to power that is portrayed as part of the portrayal of men and women, then a related research article that you might find is possible is on previous studies done of men and women, not necessarily of websites, but perhaps in television shows, perhaps in films, perhaps in those 2 countries. You're going to have to see what's out there. And so a literature review is where the authors of their own study take a look at what has already been published so that they are not recreating knowledge that already exists, and more importantly, so that they can springboard off of the previous research studies to help inform their own studies. That's what a literature review is all about. So you're going to critique the literature. You're going to look at what the other authors that you're studying have studied in terms of other research sources. You're going to assess whether these research sources are mostly from a field of sociology, a field of psychology, a field of economics, a field of communication. You're going to assess by the journal titles and also the way that those articles are titled in the research literature, whether this particular article that you're looking at has some weaknesses and or has some strengths because of the body of work that it has taken a look at. So that's up to you to critique, first of all, the literature review in the research article. Then secondly, you'll notice that the research article you're looking at is going to have a methodology section. A methodology section sets up how the phenomenon that's going to be studied is going to be studied. Is the phenomenon, and that's the singular of the word phenomena, is the phenomenon studied according to a survey that the authors conducted and collected a lot of answers that they then compiled into statistical data? Is the article's methodology going to be more humanistically based, which is to conduct interviews of people? Is the article going to be looking at ethnographic research, which is the principal researchers going out and observing the way that people, for example, watch television, or the way that people watch films, or the way that people listen to music? That's an ethnographic study where people go out into the audience, into the subjects that they're studying. So there are a lot of different ways that you can design a methodology, and this is something I'm going to be looking for you to increase your abilities in by the second and the third article. So the first one, I'm going to be expecting you to just sort of be getting a handle on how to critique a methodology, and by the second and third article you're going to be doing for this class, I'm going to look for a more sophisticated critique in terms of the methodology. It's going to be very easy and very tempting to say, for example, the sample size of newspapers that was looked at in this article was very small. They only looked at 40 newspapers and they could have looked at more. Okay, that's sort of an entry-level critique of methodology. It certainly is a valid critique. But I'm looking you to go beyond that. I'm looking you to look at the questions that were asked of the subjects. I'm looking for you to critique the people who were selected for inclusion in the study. I'm looking for you to look at the design of the study itself. That's what the methodology is all about. How did they decide to collect their data and then make interpretations about the data? That's what a methodology is all about. So that's the second component of your research article that you should critique. And then the third component that you should critique is the findings. The findings are going to be the results of the study. They're going to be what the authors are concluding. So there's going to be some summary information reminding the readers what was found, and then there are going to be broader implications they're talking about. What are the meanings of the findings? What are the implications of the findings for society, for media policy, for people's understanding of the world? So you're going to look at those findings and you're going to critique whether the authors have come to reasonable conclusions. This is really where I'm going to expect to see some of your own original brain power, really getting into those findings and massaging them and curtailing them and modifying them or reinforcing them, and to take those findings in some way, shape, or form and critique where they are strong and where they are weak. And some of this will revert back to the methodology of the study. Some of this will revert back to the literature review. But the focus here should not be on repeating what you've already critiqued in the methodology and the literature review. Instead, what you should be doing is focusing on the findings themselves and how they are extended off of what the authors in the article have found. Yeah, findings extending off of the findings. I guess that is actually an accurate statement. So I hope this helps you with this assignment, the research article evaluations. Best of luck.